Hi, and welcome to Living in El Paso, Texas. My name is John Peña. I'm a real estate agent with EXP, and in this video, it's going to be a real barn burner. We are going to talk all about property taxes. Hi, and welcome to Living in El Paso, Texas. This channel is all about El Paso, eat, sleep, work, play. If that's the kind of information that you are looking for, by all means, please consider subscribing to the channel. Click the notification bell so that you know when new videos come out, which is every week at least. And in this video, we're going to jump into the topic of property taxes, because if there's one objection that I get from folks when they are considering a move to El Paso, it's either safety, because it's hard to believe that we can be so close to a place that is violent, Juarez, and that violence somehow won't seep into our city. It does not, and El Paso, consistently ranks as one of the safest cities in the country. But the other objection that I get from folks is property taxes are too high. And I have a couple of go-to sayings when I hear that objection. One is that I admit that yes, property taxes more or less, range around 3% of the value of the home that you're going to pay every year. So on a $100,000 home, you're going to pay $3,000 a year, more or less. But we're going to get into the specifics of that in this video. And then the other thing that I say is that do keep in mind that if you're still working, if you're still earning a wage, you have income coming in, Texas does not have state income tax, so that can kind of offset those property taxes if that's a big concern for you. But with that said, let's go ahead and just jump right into it. I wanted to, like I said, my goal for this channel as a real estate agent in general is to provide you with honest, good information, knowledge. I want to provide you with as much value as humanly possible. I'm not trying to, pull the wool over your eyes. I'm not trying to twist your arm into anything here. I want you to know exactly what is the reality of El Paso, and part of that reality is property taxes. So, first off, if you're maybe sort of new to home buying, you might be wondering, all right, well, what are property taxes, right? Property taxes are just like they say. They essentially define themselves. It's a tax paid on a property. This could be a single family home. This could be an apartment building that somebody owns, a commercial building, land, what have you. And essentially, those taxes are based off of the market value of that property. So, why does this matter, you might ask, especially if you're a first-time home buyer? It matters because when you purchase a home, you're going to pay those property taxes every year. It's not like you're just going to pay property taxes once and then you're good. Boy, that would be awesome, but that is not the case. Property taxes are an annual tax, meaning that you pay them every single year. Next, you might be wondering, okay, well, if I'm going to pay them, what are they used for, right? This is another one of the ways that I speak to folks about property taxes, because property taxes pay for the things that matter to a city and to a community. So, we are talking about things like schools, public education. If you've watched this channel at all, you've seen, especially in the first videos when I was really driving around and just kind of showing the town, I was always pointing out, oh look, they're building a new, STEM academy, or they're building a new basketball auditorium. And these are nice facilities, right? These schools that we have in El Paso, they're great. And the reason that our schools are great is because the school districts have the money from property taxes to hire the best teachers, implement the best teaching strategies and training, build the best facilities, quality isn't free. So if you have children, it's not hard for me to convince you that paying property taxes isn't necessarily a bad thing, because a lot of what property taxes go to are schools. Community colleges as well. We have a very expansive and great El Paso community colleges. They're spread out all over the city so that they are conveniently located for everybody, and they are top notch. This also goes to things like a fire department. So, you know, if God forbid that your house catches on fire, you're going to be glad that everybody's paying property taxes, because our top-notch fire department is going to be there quick, and they're going to, you know, they're going to help you and potentially save a life. In that same vein, police, right? If you want a quality, well-trained, responsive police force, well, that takes money, right? You need to train all of these people. You need to outfit them with gear. You need to make sure that their vehicles run, you know, and all of that, right? Hospitals. Part of our property taxes go to the various healthcare institutions in our community. Most recently, we just went, or we still are, going through a global pandemic. Thank goodness that we had hospitals in place, because El Paso was essentially ravaged by coronavirus, right? Had we not had property taxes to pay for all of that healthcare infrastructure, you know, our situation, it was terrible, but it could have been a lot worse, right? I'm always showing parks and rec centers. These things are not free. Parks do not just magically appear and maintain themselves, right? Same with rec centers. Infrastructure, roads, right? You have probably gone through cities or states where maybe the property taxes are really low, and dare I say that perhaps their roads were full of potholes, were old. We all heard the stories a couple years back with the bridge collapsing, crumbling infrastructure, right? So in order for a city to be thriving, to be growing, to be being proactive for kind of this incoming surge of new people, this takes money, right? And that money, a lot of that money comes from property taxes. Finally, property taxes, how do they get paid? Most people choose to roll them into their mortgage payment. So for instance, if you get a home loan to buy a home, you are going to pay a monthly mortgage payment. And the majority of that payment is going to go towards interest principal, okay, to paying off the loan, right? But some of that you can wrap in your home insurance, right? So you can chop that into 12 monthly payments, wrap that into your mortgage payment, that covers your home insurance. Most people choose to do the exact same thing with their property tax payment. Whatever that number is that you're going to pay for a year, divide that by 12, and you add that into your mortgage payment. So some folks, let's say that you own your home, let's say you bought your home for cash, or you paid off your home a couple years ago, you're still going to pay your property taxes. It's just at the end of the tax year, or whenever the El Paso Central Appraisal District requests that payment. I'm not exactly sure when that is, but you're gonna get a bill, and you're gonna go in and you're going to pay that. Okay, so I just mentioned the El Paso Central Appraisal District. Here is some footage of that building. I was actually there a couple of times this week. Really very nice people. I was in there asking them all sorts of questions, taking every brochure that they had. So they were very kind and generous and patient with me, asking all the questions. But this entity, right, is tasked with the following. So their mission essentially is to accurately and equitably interpret the market value of all taxable property in El Paso County. So if you have purchased a home, or if you've been watching the channel a little bit, you've heard me talk about appraisals and or appraisers. And in the context of buying a home, you're going to hear me talk about that, because let's say you buy a home, you submit an offer, the seller accepts your offer, you get under contract, we start the whole process, and towards the middle of this process, what's going to happen if you're using a home loan, if you're getting a home loan, is that the lender who is going to lend you this money to purchase the home, they're going to want to make sure that if you're buying the home for $200,000 and they're going to give you a loan for $175,000, they want to make sure that the home is worth at least $175,000, because if it isn't, then they're essentially throwing their money away. They are putting themselves in a risky position, and lenders are not do not want to be in a risky position. So the way that they're going to make sure that the home is worth the amount of money that they're about to lend to you for it is they're going to hire an appraiser, okay? You don't have a choice, nobody has a choice. The lender decides who this is. You as the buyer, by the way, are going to pay for it. Typically it's about $500. And this appraiser is going to go out and they are going to essentially determine the value of the home, and then they're going to give that number back to the lender. And if the appraiser says, okay, the house is worth $175,000, great, no problem. If the appraiser comes back and says, hey, the house is worth $200,000, the bank's going to be like, great, and you're going to be like, awesome, okay? If the appraisal comes back for $165,000, well, then there's a problem, all right? Because the lender is not going to want to give you a loan for $175,000 when it's only worth $165,000. So the El Paso Appraisal District, their job is to actually appraise the value, the fair market value of every property in El Paso, right? Their primary function is to provide a timely and accurate appraisal roll or appraisal amount of all these properties in El Paso to the taxing entities of El Paso while providing quality service to the taxpayers. So, this is pretty important because in order for these different taxing entities, which we are going to talk about here shortly, in order for them to essentially know how much to charge you in property taxes, they need the fair market value of your home, right? This is very, very, very important. Now, a quick word about these different taxing entities. So, I'm going to put up a graph here on the screen, and you can see that these are the different entities that essentially can charge you property taxes, okay? It's not like there's just one lump sum property tax that you pay. You do have a lump sum property tax that you pay, but it's made up from these different entities that you reside in their jurisdiction, in proximity to them, and they are allowed to charge you, a certain amount because of where you live. So, for instance, you can see there are different areas: Anthony, Conatillo, the town of Clint, the city of El Paso, El Paso County, some of these overlays. So for me, for instance, I live in El Paso County and I live in the city of El Paso, right? Now it's not just areas, but it's actually school districts. So there's a lot of ISD, means independent school districts. So if I live in, let's say, Clint, then the town of Clint could assess property taxes on me, and the Clint Independent School District could also ask for property taxes from me and get them, right? So it sort of depends on where you live. The city of Horizon, right? Socorro Independent School District. So Socorro Independent School District actually encompasses some of the areas in the city of El Paso, and right, so you're not going to pay taxes to the city of Socorro because you don't live in the city of Socorro. You might live in the city of, Horizon City, but Socorro's independent school district might overlap and you might pay them. So the point of this is that there are these different taxing entities, and depending where you live, those different entities are going to request payment of property taxes from you. So, a big one next is, well, how do they appraise my property? How do they come up with the fair or market value of my home, right? They need to come up with what's called a taxable value for every property, and that can be determined each year. When I was into the district, they said, they send out a notice of value every 3 years, but if there's a lot of construction going on and there's a lot of hustle and bustle in the city, which there is right now, they might, update your appraised value on a yearly basis, all right? But they have essentially a taxable value for your home, the market value of your home as of January 1st of whatever that tax year is. So I wrote down this quote. This is right from one of the brochures. So the appraised value, essentially this taxable value or this market value, is the price at which a property or a home would transfer for cash or its equivalent, could be, let's say, you did a traditional loan, under prevailing market conditions. A, if it were put up for sale on the open market. B, if the property was sold for its intended use. C, if the sale were fair to both the seller and the buyer. So essentially, this market value or this taxable value, this is essentially determined by these appraisers who work at the El Paso Central Appraisal District. It's determined by them, and it is essentially the value that they believe your home would sell for on the open market. If it were put up for sale and there was no funny business and it had enough time for the seller to find a buyer, what would that value be? And that is a very important number, because that is the number that your property taxes are based off of. So, how is this value determined? There are 3 approaches depending on the type of property that it is. There's what we call the cost approach. This essentially is an appraiser would look at a property and they would say, okay, if this property, burnt to the ground and they had to rebuild it, how much would it cost to rebuild it, okay? Another way that happens a lot of times with residential or, single family homes is the market sales approach. This is kind of similar to a comparative market analysis. So when a real estate agent goes to determine value, they're going to gather a bunch of data about all of the surrounding homes within a couple of miles of the target home, and they're going to approximate, let's say that your house is 2,000 square feet. I might look at homes that are 1,800 to 2,200 square feet, similar size, similar number of bedrooms, similar year built, similar lot size, and they're essentially going to look in this little radius of proximity about what homes sold in the last 6 months, what they sold for, homes that are actively for sale, and they're essentially going to compare all of these other homes that are similar to your home or the target home, and then base their valuation off of that. And for, let's say, like apartment buildings or condos or something, they might do an income approach. Not condos, apartment buildings is probably the best example. The income approach looks at how much an investment property essentially provides the owner or the landlord in revenue, and then they can base their valuation off of that. Let's say that the appraisals, the appraisers do their thing and they come back to you, and you just bought a home here in El Paso, and they come back and they say, all right, your home is worth $250,000. Now, around April 1st, you're going to receive that market value and also an estimate of the property taxes that you're going to pay. Now, you don't have to just lay down and take their valuation. you can actually file a protest. This is written into law so that you have a legal means by which to file a protest and say, hey, wait a second, I don't think my home is worth $250,000 for this reason or that reason or this reason, right? Now, in order to do that, you have to file a written notice of protest by May 15th, okay? So, the timing here is very, very important. But I just wanted to include this information so you knew that you did have options if you felt that the appraisers overvalued your home. You can go to an informal hearing. There are a number of steps that you as a homeowner can take in the state of Texas. Now, this now brings us to exemptions. An exemption is the reduction or removal of a tax liability. So, we have a number of different exemptions. We have, and now it starts to get complicated, I'm not gonna lie. A lot of this depends on where you live and what tax entities you fall under, right? Because all the different tax entities, all the different school districts, they all have different exemptions that can apply to you depending on this or this. But for the sake of kind of just trying to keep this thing clear, there are two state mandated exemptions that you could qualify for in El Paso. One is a state mandated homestead exemption. You qualify for a homestead exemption if you live in your home and it is essentially your primary residence. So it's not your vacation home, it's not your second home that you just come down and live in, during the winter. It is your primary residence. You live in this home for the majority of the time. Another state mandated exemption is for folks who are over 65 years of age. Now, again, these are not the only ones. If you are a disabled vet, there are some very generous tax exemptions. There are Social Security disability exemptions, but like I said, this starts to kind of go down the rabbit hole, and I'm going to show you where you can find out more of this information if you really, really want to get a really clear picture of what your obligation might be for property taxes in El Paso. So, just to stick with, like I said, kind of the easy ones, if you qualify for the homestead exemption, school districts have to take off $25,000 of that market value. So if the appraisal district comes back and they say that my home is worth $200,000, then the school districts, just one school district, in my case, let's say the El Paso Independent School District, they can only assess me at the $175,000. They have to take off $25,000 from my market value, and then, so instead of me paying property taxes on a home that's worth $200,000, I pay property taxes on a home that's worth $175,000 to the school district. If you're over 65, the school districts also take off another $10,000. So those are some good little breaks. Again, it can, as you'll see, it's not cut and dry. It'd be so much easier if it was just, one blanket percentage rate, and it was like, okay, in El Paso, you are going to pay your property taxes are going to be 3% of the market value of your home. That would make it easy, but unfortunately, it's not like that, and I'm going to walk you through exactly kind of what it is like and how you can determine what your tax burden might be specifically on, all these various homes. Okay, before we jump into the website and we take a look at a specific example, I wanted to just mention this idea of truth in taxation. This essentially requires local taxing units to make taxpayers aware of tax rate proposals and to afford them the opportunity to roll back or limit tax increases. This is written directly into the state constitution because you know, we live in a democracy and we want to have a say in essentially everything that affects us, especially when it comes to our government. And so this idea of truth in taxation, this essentially requires all of the various taxing units to let us know when proposed tax rate increases are going to happen, and to give us the opportunity to roll back those taxes when we feel like they're starting to get out of hand, or to simply cap them or limit them. And finally, we're going to jump into a website. I'm going to put the URL up here in a moment. It's elpaso.truthintaxation.com. And essentially, this is a public-facing website. You can go to this website. Let's say that you really are concerned about this and you want to plan for exactly, you know, what you're getting yourself into. Let's say if you're moving to El Paso. You can go directly to this website and you can start to see what homes are paying in taxes. For instance, let's say that you're searching for a home in El Paso and you have a particular area that you're interested in. You can jump onto my website. I'll put the URL down here. You can jump onto my website and find a home and find an address that looks good, like, you know, it's exactly what you're looking for. Maybe it's in Horizon City and it's a 4-bedroom house and it's newer and it's priced at, you know, $210,000. You can take that exact street address, go to the Truth in Taxation website, enter that address into the website, and you can see exactly what you would pay in property taxes if you were to buy that home. Now, the only caveat there is if you are over 65 and the person who's currently living there isn't, you know that you would get a little bit of a tax break from the school districts, at least $10,000 off the appraised value, vice versa. So it's not exact, because the person that might be in the home now might qualify or not qualify for certain exemptions that you would qualify or not qualify for. So, real quick math lesson: to calculate taxes, you're going to take that taxable value, divide that by 100, and multiply that result by the tax rate. And just to make it easy on you, like I said, I'm going to take you through that process right now. Thank you so much. Like I said at the beginning, the real barn burner. This one is not all that exciting for some people, but like I said, I do get this question a lot. I know that some people are concerned about property taxes, and while I feel that property taxes are an integral part of a growing and living and amazing city, I can certainly understand people who might be of the belief that, you know, you've worked your whole life and you've earned all of this money, what have you, and you would rather not give it away to these different tax entities. I can completely understand both sides. If you want any more information, by all means, please consider reaching out. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the website and see. I'm just going to show you exactly on my house, exactly what I pay in property taxes, just to help you see that, yes, this is public-facing information, and if you really want to dig into it, you certainly can. With that, thank you so much. Okay, so here we are at elpaso.truthintaxation.com. I've looked up my property address, and this is what I've gotten to. So this, again, remember, this is all public facing, okay? So these are my property taxes. Complete upfront honesty. In May of 2020, my home was on the market for $205,000. We ended up paying $207,000 because of, you know, El Paso, and there were a lot of buyers, and we ended up paying just over $205,000. So I paid $207,000 for my home, 4-bedroom home with a pool. You know, 1984, 2,000 square feet, pretty nice place, good view. So here's my total taxes by percentage. And now, like I said, this is where I was talking about, you know, it's not just one flat thing. You can see that I have essentially 5 different tax entities that are charging me property taxes. First off, the biggest one is El Paso Independent School District. So I am in the city of El Paso Independent School District. They make up about 38% of my property taxes, $1,911. I'm in the city of El Paso. All right, this might be different. It could be, you know, Clint, Horizon City, Conatillo, what have you. But the city of El Paso makes up about 31% of my property tax bill, just over $1,500. I'm in El Paso County. All right, that makes up about 17% of my bill, $832. I happen to be in the area where the University Medical Center is charging me $469, and then EPCC is the El Paso Community Colleges. So now, here's where it gets a little bit interesting. So this does support my kind of general idea about, look, property taxes in El Paso more or less are going to range around 3%, right? So this is no new revenue rate. So this would be the percentage that I'm paying right now. This is the proposed rate, okay? This is what the tax entities are proposing. This would be the voter approval rate, the adopted rate. So the tax rate changes over time, right? Because it's not just going to be set in stone. You know, people are going to propose new rate increases, people are going to fight for rate decreases, and so then depending on how big it is, voters might have to go to the polls and approve or disapprove. So it can change. It can change, excuse me. So this is where, though, I wanted to take a look. So I am in the city of El Paso, okay? So the city has decided, the appraisers have decided that my home, its market value is $176,959. Now, you may be saying, well, wait, you just told me that you paid $207,000, right? This, my market value, is about $30,000 less than what I paid for the home. So now this is a good thing, because this means that I'm actually paying less than I bought my home for. And I can't say with all certainty or guarantee you this, but typically the market value or the appraised value, the assessed value that the county is going to come up with for your home will probably be less than what you paid for the home. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. So there's my assessed value. I'm getting a $5,000 optional residential homestead exemption from the city of El Paso. So if we take $5,000 away from this market value or assessed value, this is at taxable value. So the city of El Paso, they are basing their evaluation of my home at $171,959. So the tax rate is, for the city of El Paso, 0.902107. If we do the math, from our earlier things, 171,959 divided by 100 multiplied by this tax rate. This is how then they come up with my tax amount. Okay, now this is awesome. We were talking about if you want to truth in taxation, so we have to know when these proposed rate increases are happening. This tells me exactly when the budget hearings were, when they're going to be coming up. There's a mass transit budget hearing, tax hearings, tax adoption. So I can go to these different meetings and have my voice heard so that I am aware of what's going on. Now, another tax entity, I'm in El Paso County, all right? They are also giving me a $5,000 residential optional homestead exemption, so I'm only getting taxed on just under $172. The tax rate for the county is much lower, which is why I'm only paying $831.98 for this tax year. ISD, this stands for Independent School District. So the El Paso Independent School District, here is my state mandated $25,000 exemption amount. Everybody gets this. So I'm not paying property taxes based off of this amount. It's this amount minus $25,000, which means the El Paso Independent School District is, basing their property taxes for my home off of this value. Now this rate is a little bit higher, but it's this value divided by 100 multiplied by this, which gives us $1,911. All right. Two more, I believe. El Paso Community College. There's no exemption for them, so they're billing me off of my assessed or market value. Their rate, though, is pretty low, and I'm only paying $247 to them. And then finally, the University Medical Center, no exemption from them. So their rate, again, pretty low, 0.265%. I'm paying $469. So when you add all of those different tax entities up, this is what we come up with, and my total tax amount for 2020, I believe this is going to be $5,011. So I've got my calculator right here. If I divide that, 5,011, 58 cents divided by 12 is $417. So $417 of my monthly mortgage payment is being put aside for my property taxes, so that at the end of the year when I have to pay my property taxes, that money has already been put aside and it just gets automatically paid. Boom. I don't have to be like scrambling at the end of the tax year and be like, oh man, I got to come up with $5,000. I didn't save that money. Nope. That money is being taken out of every monthly mortgage payment, or put into every monthly mortgage payment, so that when that bill comes, that money is already there and it's going to get paid. So that is how you would find out, what you wanted to do. Like I said, if you wanted to do a property search, and let's say you wanted to find a home and see exactly what it was going for, you would go in there. I'm going to black all this out just because I don't want to put anyone's, it is all public information, I guess, but you could just go in and you could go and you could see exactly what a certain home is paying in taxes. All right, this is actually an interesting one. This is a home over in Horizon City, and you can see how different this looks. They have actually 6 different tax entities, and look at this. The Socorro Independent School District, this home again is in Horizon City. The Socorro Independent School District is, charging a little bit more. What's the assessed value? This is pretty close to my assessed value. Mine was 176, this is 175. So what's their total bill? Total. It hasn't been published yet. But you can see that they still have to pay a little bit to the El Paso community colleges. They still pay to the University Medical Center. This, I'm not exactly sure what that is. That's another tax entity that must be in Horizon City. Paseo del Este, MUD, this is a municipal utility district, I believe. And then they're still paying some to the county. So it really does kind of change, and depending on where you live. So again, if you are, oh, here we go. Here's the more or less. So they're paying actually a little bit more than me. So their home was a little bit less, yet I was paying $5,111, I believe. They're paying $5,430 more or less. So it does depend on where you live, and if it's, like I said, very concerning to you, then I would, jump on my website, jump on Zillow, whatever, find a house in an area and at a price that you're interested in, jump onto this website, type in the address, and then you'll be able to see exactly how the property taxes are being figured. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.